the fun part of today for me will be hearing you talk to us about your ideas for your two story ideas. I call everybody in for this because it's a pretty important step in a big part of the class, which is your original reporting. So what I want to do, I went over this on the day that we presented the syllabus, but it's been a while. And now we are really getting down to work on this particular pathway through the class. So it's a good idea to remind you what it's all about in the big picture, and then the micro picture as to what to do with what we do today, what to do with it for next week and the week after. Okay, so but first the big picture. So we've already been studying general ideas about reporting and writing the news or informational material. Looking at chapters, we did radio and rap based on other people's reporting, right? We probably took a newspaper article and extracted the facts, wrote a script, so that's terrific. We'll continue to do little things like that from week to week in the assignments. But we also have kind of a program of interconnected assignments which are based on your own original reporting. And that's what these two story ideas are for. So I'm going to ask you to take one of these story ideas and right away begin reporting on it. It's whichever one you think is more viable or you're more enthusiastic about, if they're equally viable. And I asked you for two in case one falls through, because many things depend on this story working. So you always have a backup, hopefully. So right now I'm asking for two ideas. Next week I'll be asking for a series of questions and some background research that you would be asking to the person named, either as the subject of a profile you want to do, or a key resource who's going to talk to you about an event that you propose to cover. Either way, you need to interview somebody. So I'm asking you for the questions for that next week, and just as soon as you can to go ahead and do the interview. About 3 weeks from now, we'll be due a radio script based on the interview. So you'll be taking the information and some sound bites from the interview that you do and writing it into a longer form radio script. You've already seen the format for radio scripts when you did your readers and raps. But now you're going to use your own information and the sound bites that you gathered during your interview in order to create a longer script in that same format. And we'll cover that when that assignment actually pops up. You're going to use that same informational interview, you're going to dip back into it when a couple of weeks after that, I ask you to write a television piece about the same subject. So you will be using more little sound bites from the same interview, and you'll also be thinking about how you would treat it visually for television. Again, you're still just going to write a script, but you're going to write a television script based on the same reporting. And a couple of weeks after that, I will ask you to adapt that television script into a web page based on the same reporting that will take sound bites and information from the same interview, and you will perhaps also be rewriting what you wrote for the television script in a longer form with more detail and changing the structure of the story, etc., to conform to what we say is good practice for writing for the web. So you can see why this is an important first step, is one of these two stories, or perhaps both, because you can change midstream. If you get fed up of working on the same story, you can switch to your B story if you want. One of these two will probably be the basis of at least 3 major assignments for the class. A radio script, a television script, and a website type of mock-up, just the text will be on the website. So any questions about that? Awesome. So, you can see that all of the links to all of these things are in here, right? And as I said, from time to time, there's a little assignment which is not based on this reporting, but is based on, I give you a fact sheet, or I ask you to adapt a newspaper article or something like that. But in general, the big things, the TV package script, the web package, and the radio feature, these are based on the interview that you're soon going to do for the story that you're pitching today. Jesse.
So when we're doing this interview, would it be smart to have like all that equipment already set? Are we doing like video footage? Are we doing
so
footage, or are we just gonna just script it all out and that's it?
it's a great question. You're just going to script it all out and that's it. But we should talk specifically about that. We're good on the big picture though. So now you know that, for instance, this wasn't just a one-off assignment where you say 2 ideas and then you go on and develop something else, right? I'm expecting you to develop one of the things that you pitched to us today. So that's the big picture. Anyway, the micro picture is where we're going with this next, and this speaks to Jesse's question. So next week, where is it on this? We talked about it last class, and so okay, here we are. We're here. So the next one that's up is the radio interview questions and backgrounder. So that's basically give me a list of 10 questions that you want to ask the resource that you're going to interview for this, and give me 5 points of background information that you want to have with you when you do the interview so that you are a knowledgeable interviewer. That's due on September 25th. That's next week. Now, as soon as you get those questions, or even before, if it works out that your subject is willing to talk to you and do the interview right away, jump right in there and do it. Now, Jesse's question is a good one. This is a writing class. We are not actually going to edit or produce anything from this interview. You're just going to record it in whatever medium you can for your reference, so that when you come back to write the script, you have a good record of what was said. So most people would be recording this on their phone, either in the voice memo app, or if you want to shoot a video of the interview, that's fine. But this isn't in order to take and edit into, something in your video editing class or whatever. This is just as a reference for you to then write your script based on that. So if you got a video camera, use a video camera. If you've got your phone, voice memo or video off the phone is great. If you have a little personal recorder, that's fine too. The audio quality doesn't matter as long as it's intelligible for you. That's it. Of course, the video doesn't matter as long as it's intelligible. If you ever thought, if you had the ambition that you'd actually like to edit this together and produce it, then go ahead. But that's not for credit for this class. It might be just a cool thing for your portfolio one day or something. Okay? So, always thinking what would be good. All right? So the questions are due next week, and then the week after is due the script that you write based on the information that you get from the interview. Okay? So another thing, which is while I have you here, this is very important. This is a common misconception. It really is a big reason why I like to get everyone together at this point. When you do the interview, you will never actually submit the entire transcript of the interview. You do not go home and type up everything that was said. That's not the way this works, right? So you ask your 10 questions, you get the answers, you have them on tape, and you go ahead for this assignment, which of course we'll be talking about extensively before it's actually due. So next week we'll start talking about this seriously. This is a script where you drive the story for 90% of the script. It's you who says, you may have wondered what the Chancellor of City College does day to day. I did, and then I was lucky enough to have the opportunity of spending the day with Chancellor Mark Roca to see the many things that he does on campus, and you continue, Once in a while, you'll have a soundbite of, for instance, a student saying, yeah, the Chancellor's there when you need him and such, and then back into you telling the story. So 90% of this is going to be you as the radio reporter doing your thing, right? The only thing that will come directly from the interview are short 15-second sound bites. So you're doing the interview for 2 things: to get information, right, and to get sound bites. So I will never have time in order to read the transcript of 25 10 question long interviews or whatever. That's not going to be my thing. So you will be doing this to gather information for what you want to talk about, and you'll probably need 3 or 4 15-second sound bites or so maximum out of this. So again, we did a little exercise where we looked at a print story, and the sound bites were the stuff that were in quotations. Those were the direct comments from people. Chancellor is cool, whatever. So that's what somebody said. Meanwhile, you also, in the course of your interview, you would have said, Chancellor Roca, can you tell me what was your most important experience when you worked at Northridge Community College in Los Angeles? And he'll tell you, well, the most awesome thing, the horrible thing that happened is we had an earthquake while I was teaching there. And the whole school was shut down because nobody could drive to school. And so that meant that everybody in the school community not only had to deal with an earthquake, but also the paycheck stopped. And all the students, their entire month of school was canceled. So classes were in chaos. Some of them didn't get their certificates on time, and so on and so forth. So it was a real mess. And so Chancellor Roca really cares about being prepared for an emergency, which is bound to happen to us. So he's told you all of that. You have all that information. You're going to record that, and you're going to write that into your script, So at some point you'll be saying, and during the day, Chancellor Roca met with, FEMA representatives or whatever to find out what they could possibly do for the college if there's ever a disaster. And from there might be one soundbite, And so you're talking, he met with FEMA people, and then you might have Chancellor at one point saying, I learned at Northridge how terrible it can be when a natural disaster befalls a community college. Boom, and that's it, and you continue, okay? So just elaborating on why you're doing this interview. So again, it would be very discouraging to not have listened to what I just said, to go off, to record an interview, to do a 15-page transcript, and then submit it on the idea that what I want is like a Terry Gross episode where you've got a celebrity for a half hour and you sit down and ask him 10 questions and you just have his entire answers. This is not the case. This is like a little news bit where the reporter drives the story and you just have sound bites. Okay? Any questions about that? Really, now is the best time to clarify.
Did you say 3 15-second sound bites or just one?
You got to see, it's definitely more than one. Definitely more than one. So a 45-second rap had one soundbite at the center of it, right? You all wrote one of those. But this is a feature, either a profile or covering an event. So you're only going to talk to one person, but you're going to want to hear from them on 3 or 4 different, topics from their life or something like that. So I'd say 3-4 sound bites is probably the average in this case. And so that's why you're making the tape. So you have exactly, the words that they're saying. So the way this works is really once you know how you're going to tell your story, the kind of things that you want to talk about because you've learned through your interview a lot of interesting facts about the chancellor. At that point, you have an outline of what you want to talk about. Then you can go through the tape of your interview and say, oh, that was a really good part, because he really expressed very concisely. It was short and it was powerful what he said about his experience of the earthquake in Los Angeles. So I'm going to pick that little chunk to be a soundbite. So what you're looking for in sound bites, short, powerful, emotional punch. We're getting a sense of the character of somebody because they say something in a certain way. These are all appropriate reasons to pick a soundbite. The statistics, City College has 55,000 students, 35,000 of them are part-time. That's much better that you say it. There's no reason to have the chancellor spout statistics. We want to get a sense of what the chancellor really cares about. So at that point, we're going to be looking through the sound bites to, what's top drawer here. The stuff that's in a pamphlet, you can say that. Okay. So, right? Okay, good. Yes, Ron.
So like one half is you, and then the other half is like the interviewee.
I think I said 90% is you, 10% is the interviewee. Yeah, it's more like that. Mostly you. Everything okay back there? All right. So we are going to just hear your story ideas, and this has been a long time coming, I know. Let's see. Yeah, we just. I'm just wondering. I don't want you to read aloud the whole text of what you turned in. We'll never get to the end of it. So, I asked you for 2 story ideas. If you are clear about which one you really want to do, then tell us about that one. If you're kind of hesitating, give us an idea about both of them. The other thing is, the great thing is, in a room full of people, everybody knows somebody, everybody has some leads or something like that. So if the class can help you out with anything, and this often happens, class, feel free to make suggestions. If you hear the story idea and you know somebody who could speak to that or something, that would be great. If you're the person with the story idea and you have any misgivings or I don't know, I'd really like this or that, now's the time to ask a question. Okay. Let's see here. I know some people obviously didn't turn it in yet, and I don't want to pick on the people who turned it in, so I won't go off of that list. Let me just basically go off a class list and sort of see what we're going to do. And yeah, let's see. Ramon, why don't you tell us, what's your A story idea? Oh, and believe it or not.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, because they can't hear you as well as when you talk. So hold it up close, actually.
Yeah, you got it. Well, my A story was actually yesterday. There was, if you ever heard of Union Square Live, that's where just live bands play. So I went to that, see if I could interview somebody there, but it was pretty busy. There were people dancing, so instead I just went, okay, let me go to their contacts and see if they'll get back to me. So I'm still waiting on that. If that doesn't go through, next Thursday I'm going to a comedy club. Gonna see if I can interview the comedian there instead. So those are my 2 A stories. My B story is I have a family friend who grows plants, and he travels between states. So I was just going to interview him about that one, about just about growing plants, basically.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, but you're leaning towards one of the events that you're
more likely one of the events. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So. As soon as you connect with somebody knowledgeable about one of the events, I think you're on your way.
Yeah.
And it's good that you attended already, just in case, you do make the contact, you were actually there, so you have your impressions of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Any suggestions or anything? Or questions? Is your angle going to be more sort of like on the preparation? Like, let's say the event that you covered last night. You're going to talk to an organizer. What are the kind of things you want to know?
Definitely how was working with the person that was playing. If there was any trouble setting up, obviously. That's all I got.
Okay, well, how about more like, how to attract an audience? Like, who is the audience for this? Like, what kind of challenges they might face as a venue and, promoting this type of thing? Or that probably is another angle you could follow up, as well as, just the actual specifics of the event, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to know how are you going to get to the comedian, for example, for your B story?
Oh, that one is it's at a bar.
Okay.
Right off of right off the 16th Street Mission bar exit. You just go up there. It's right there. So
Okay.
That was my other.
Does the comedian do any particular type of humor or represent any kind of like social group with their humor?
Well, that I'm still researching that because I was hoping I'd be able to go to.
Sure thing. Yeah.
So now I kind of have to go to this other one instead.
Well, check it out. If maybe you'll get in touch with whoever, right? But I mean, that would be another kind of avenue towards an interesting angle on the story. Is let's say it's a comedian from a particular community, and that inflects their humor, and that would lead you out, to not just, well, here's a working comedian, but here's somebody who's doing a style of humor which is or has a target audience which is particularly interesting or something.
Yeah.
Remember, we were in our first days, we had the foci, the sort of newsworthiness criteria with which we could always get a sense of our story. So it was what was it? Somebody famous, oddity, conflict, which is a big winner, immediacy, and impact, I think. Eric told me that last time. So, as you think through your story, think about it. Oh, sure, it's a comedian. That's great. There's immediacy. It's a local person. But, are there other sort of newsworthy aspects that you can play on? And that would lead you to, particular focus in your questions. Okay, so who's up next? William. William.
Yep.
Hey, lucky guy. So as we proceed alphabetically, all those who have Z as their last name. Go ahead, William.
So for my profile, I have a coworker who is going through the process of completing online college while maintaining a full-time minimum wage job, and I think it highlights pretty accurately the struggle that 20-something-year-olds have to go through these days to put themselves through school. And so I think it would be an interesting lifestyle piece that could highlight the struggles that she had to go through to achieve her aspiration of a computer science major.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a challenging major and challenging life. And I like the way you pitch it here as the modern millennial experience.
Yeah.
So you're clearly using that individual to talk about the broader context of the challenges that, so, there's definitely immediacy there in that one. I'm not going to obsess about foci, but, immediacy in the sense that you're thinking that many people in the channel are going to identify with and understand the experience of that particular person. You think she has any kind of inside strategies that she can give to us about how to survive that?
I think her talking about her time management skills would be really influential, because she is very scheduled about her process, and I think it helps keep her on track a lot.
Wow, awesome. Yeah, I could see this in a student-targeted publication, definitely.
Yeah.
Any thoughts for William? And Natalia had a great reflex with Ramon. It's kind of like, is there stuff that you would want to know approaching that type of thing? And it's great to tell it to William, because he could add that to his question list maybe, or consider it.
Sounds good.
Sounds good? Okay, great. Thank you for that. Who's up next? Natalia.
All right. So I definitely want to go with the profile as well. So some years ago, I started following this couple from San Francisco. They are bloggers and also influencers. And it's amazing how much they are growing up, and they are traveling all around US, to influence people. So the message they have, she has, is confident, curves, and body positive. So she's encouraging all the girls to love their bodies. Doesn't matter how you are, or you have to love yourself. And they have thousands and thousands of followers. They have been on TV recently. Also, they were in the Netherlands. I saw some articles there. It's wow, you got there. So I was talking to them already, hey, I'm thinking about doing this about you guys. So what do you think? You think we can meet and do some interview? And they were of course, they're gonna move from San Francisco. So I'm thinking about doing this right now before they're moving, because, but yeah, I thought it's really interesting, because for me, it was actually, I was following all the stories and everything, the blog, and it's wow, this is really good. You're totally right. So for me, they were inspiring me. So I think it would be really nice to try to focus on that.
I think it's a great profile. What do you guys think? You'd be interested in that, hearing about an influencer?
Because some years ago, they quit their jobs just to focus on this, and right now they can live here in the city. You know, they're really young. I mean, they are like 27, 28. And they are living here in the city. They are really successful. I mean, they succeed. And it's like, hey, you can do that. Doesn't matter. Quit and follow your dream. So that's why they do, and I think it's very interesting.
So the body positivity, is that what they do for influencing, or do they do other stuff as well?
Other stuff as well. This is the first message they have. Well, she has that, and he's supporting that idea. He's also a writer, so he was writing a book for, you know, well, I didn't read the book yet,
Okay.
but I want to ask him about that.
Okay.
And that's the first message, like, be confident and love yourself.
Okay.
Doesn't matter what you do, what you are, you know, just be yourself and love yourself.
Okay.
And I think, you know, it's a really positive mind and a good message for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. It has that dimension to it, and it has the whole rise of a category of media personalities called influencers, young people, which is it's a shocking amount of money that the key influencers can make. The dream of being your own boss and entrepreneur continues in this type of activity, you know.
Because the brands and the companies are paying them to just, for example, wear that brand. It's like, wow, I mean, they're paying you to, you know, and you're receiving all this stuff at home just to, you know, post on Instagram like, hey, I have this. If you want it, just, you know, you get it here. And it worked. I mean, I was buying some stuff because I saw it's like, hey, that's cool.
And
products and clothes and everything.
You can go into, you know, even the gray area of doing social good with your work, but also profiting from it at the same time. You know, it's
hotels, like everything.
Right. Okay, there's plenty there.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah. So terrific. And so much of the time. Ryan, do you want to tell us what you're up to? Or let me give you the microphone.
Alright, so for mine, I want to contact this nonprofit in Fresno, since I'm from Fresno. So it's called Fresno Filmworks, and what they do is bring independent films to the Central Valley. So I want to contact a programming director about how films are distributed and the process of which films they select and want to bring to the Central Valley, like foreign films and independent films. So I want to interview her about the process of that and like how money and how they get sponsors and everything like that.
Sounds cool. Eric, you were working on something like that locally, weren't you?
Yeah, I'm gonna cover the Bernal Heights outdoor.
Yeah, but you kind of settled on a different angle, right? You're going to go at it through talking to a creator to start off with.
Yeah.
Versus Ryan, it looks more like he's going to go the route of, you know, organizing a big cultural event like this. So that'll be interesting. You know, two related topics, but different angles. You know? Yeah.
Why Fresno?
Just because I'm from there, and
Okay.
I think it's interesting how like what movies they choose that they want to play every month. And I think Fresno's a very interesting place.
Okay.
And like just the people there, and also just I don't know everything.
Okay.
It's really a lot of people don't like Fresno.
It has a reputation, but
Yeah.
I mean, like a lot of places have a reputation. I mean, Oakland has a reputation, but you know, Oakland's a good place, so you know, you never know. Do you actually?
You see, I hear that interaction with Roman and Ryan, and it's like, he just gave you a question. You know, I'm sure you had that question, but the question is like, how do you program for Fresno audience? Like, who is the Fresno audience? And you know, the viewer from the bigger audience has these preconceptions about Fresno, just like you said they would have it about Oakland. Maybe that needs to be confirmed or clarified or refuted, you know, and there's actually a ton of people here who like, you know, this very eclectic, so you know, you never know. So it's interesting. But just those kinds of questions give you questions or confirm where you're going. So that's why I get excited at these meetups. Okay, thank you, Ryan. Let me just get on my list here. So far, everyone's turned something in, so I'm just waiting to put someone on the spot. Sorry, I just.
You didn't turn anything in.
Wouldn't be that way. But we do, I mean, part of this is also we just got to get going. So Eric told us last class what he was up to, which is like a similar type of event at Borough Heights. Do you want to tell us now? Or, well, you know what? For people who already talked, let's come back if there's time. And it's sort of voluntary. Because otherwise we may not get everybody. Ethan, up for you. What are you working on?
I was gonna do. This is gonna sound super lazy because I am technically related to the person. I was gonna do it. My dad used to do a radio show on this community-run radio station out of the Mission called Radio Valencia, and I just thought it would be kind of interesting to talk to him about it. So I never really asked him why he started doing it. I just kind of was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And his show is kind of just a drunken, interesting, strange, on the spot, kind of made up sometimes. Like, oh, that genre sounds fun. Let's just do that.
Okay.
Throw it in.
Okay.
It was kind of cool to see, like, and I did it a couple times with him. It was kind of cool to see it was like more like loose, not like generic-y. That's cliche, kind of punk, whatever.
All right.
Yeah, it just seemed like a good topic, and it was just easier. I could basically guarantee an interview. Like,
yes, okay, but that, I mean, well, I hope you can, yeah. But first, I can't resist but put in a plug for the City College KCSF radio station where you could continue the family tradition.
Yeah,
you did you? Oh, awesome. Thank you, Ethan. That's great. So, being the teacher of a couple media classes, I can think of, just the next assignment is 10 questions plus 5 pieces of context that you should be armed with when you go to your interview. So it would be interesting, just in what you're saying, is pointing to, how odd, oddity, but how much freeform programming on radio has almost disappeared, and how valuable it is to some listeners. You were saying, oh, his show is kind of like, put together, not cliche-y, etc. So you're really pointing to the originality of that type of program.
Yeah. Like, see, he got like some bands to come on that were like in the city, but it's like the acts don't get seen because it's like a weird punk band where they'll wear pajamas and.
Right. So part of your background research should be whatever happened to non-format radio. Like, where did it go? Why did it go? Why are we in the position where there's only a couple of channels in San Francisco where you could hear that type of thing? Yeah. So that's good background for that. Other thoughts for Ethan? Softball question. What's it like having a kid, a kid like me?
Am I really that annoying?
You have to ask that later in the interview once you've got all the good. Okay.
I'm sure the answer is yes.
All right. Well, I hope that works out well. Okay. Next up, Alex. Can we pass the mic forward to Alex?
Thank you. So for my A story, I work with this he's a well-known guitar player in his actual music. He's worked with Tracy Chapman, PJ Harvey, Kelly Clarkson, Flea, many people. His name's Joe Gore, lives right here in the city. He's basically my personal mentor that I have now. And he works on his own line of guitar pedals. He's on tour. He just got back from tour, and he's now just about to start recording an album. Did not tell me with who, but he's about to start recording an album. And I wanted to know what it's like having the struggling life of a musician, and then he's also, how does he keep this presence of, he can be this normal guy walking down the street, but if you actually look him up, he's like, oh, this is a well-known guy. So.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, I like the way you selected a theme in order to, give this story, a coherence. So I guess part of what you have to build, which you're well aware of it, and you probably have plenty of sources just to demonstrate, the difficulty of surviving in that type of career. So I guess that's the adversity you're referring to. It's just like music business is tough.
Yeah, and then with his pedals, how does he come up with coming up with new pedals when there's so many that's already out there?
Good point. That's very good. That's interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that. Yeah. Other questions you might want to know about Joe Gore?
Does his work support him to live in San Francisco?
Yeah, it does actually. So this is all he's doing. Well, he does so many things in the music thing. So he does recording, then he does his live stuff, then he also writes for Premier Guitar. So doing the amount of different things is what's supporting him.
If he stopped working for a week, would he just drown?
That'd be a good question.
I mean,
so that'd be a great question. So yeah.
San Francisco is relentless.
Right. Yeah. Great question.
You ask that question to all of us. Absolutely. Yeah. That makes it one with a lot of impact. Yeah. He knows a lot of famous people, but he himself is not necessarily famous. That's an interesting angle on it. Jack of all trades, how to survive. I'm thinking about also Williams, the millennial, it's kind of representative just of a whole group of people, creative people in this context. That's great. And in many ways, you're going to try to evoke that context by just, coming up with the correct imagery to give us, Okay, cool. You're well on your way there with that, I think. Other questions maybe that you'd like to hear, but those are good ones. Yep. All righty. So it's Caterina. We pass the mic over.
So I think I would like to report on an event as well. The idea is that there is a gift store here in Sunset, and this very weekend they are holding a Makers Pop-Up. And I know the owner of this store. Recently she quit her full-time job so she can devote more time to the shop, because she has been the owner of the shop for 6 years. But then the store was open just a couple of days a week, which doesn't make that much sense. And the interesting thing, the name of the store is Whistle, and I was thinking that it can be pretty like, as an audio, she doesn't know how to whistle, but maybe her customers know how to whistle, and like I think if we talk about whistle, then maybe the listeners can pick it up and try to imitate that. And then the store is selling quite whimsical and interesting things, handmade from all over the country, and you won't be able to see them in other stores. You can find it on Etsy, but then like Etsy is digital still. And I was thinking if it's visual for TV, then I can show all these things, and like whenever I go to that store, I'm thinking, how could someone even come up with this idea? So those are cute things, but something that puts a smile on your face, but you don't see them in other places. That's the...
I like it. Yeah. What do you guys?
What sort of handmade things?
They have a lot of things from clay, like jewelry, for pots for the plants, cards, some things for just interior design, for decoration.
Okay.
So the category of like gift shop type category, but handmade and original stuff. Interesting. I was, the thing that stands out to me about your pitch is that you've thought through a kind of an auditory hook and a visual hook, and that's interesting way of thinking about it too. I mean, what you were talking about whistling, and she can't whistle, but maybe her customers can whistle. It's just interesting, and the sense that you'll be in there for radio, kind of describing what you see rather than actually showing it, will be an interesting exercise, basically in trying to, in a very concise, telegraphed way, give a sense of an interesting ambience that people can't see, but that you're describing. So a couple of things there stand out, sure.
Yeah, I was actually thinking it's going to be challenging to be explaining something you cannot see, but then in the web, maybe can we actually...
Of course, yeah.
So for the web, this is going to be amazing, for example, I think.
Yeah.
I do believe in the power of the words, so we can describe anything with the words, and then like make engage with the customer, with the listener, and then the imagination will be working.
Well, I mean, now I'm curious about seeing this, and I'm seeing their Instagram, so I was like, I'm going to check it out. Yeah. So maybe, that's good.
Yes, okay, so interest from everybody, and I support your idea that, see what you can do with the oral imagination because we have that opportunity. And yeah, absolutely. So just to come back to the big picture, when I ask you to rewrite for television or rewrite for radio, for the web, it is to get a feeling. Remember the first week that we were here, we talked about what each medium does well or does best. We talked about broadcasting being able to give you, immediacy and a kind of an emotional connection. The web gives you, a multimedia experience. And so by the time you get there, you can add those elements in, and the show, the story just gets more interesting and communicated through more channels. So part of what we're doing is also just critically understanding what each medium is good at as well. I'm thinking about Jonah doing, the studio crawl. Eventually, it'll have an auditory aspect to it too at some point. So that's interesting. Okay, thank you for that. Any other ideas? Sometimes I get overwhelmed with enthusiasm, and then I don't let anyone else talk. Lou, your turn.
Okay. All right. Yes, I've not submitted my ideas yet, but I have a couple of ideas that are kind of, they revolve around certain events. One that I was thinking of is a pro wrestling group out of the Bay Area. They're called All Pro Wrestling. I think they started around 20 or 25 years ago. They have their own little training school, and they would put on matches in a garage in Hayward. And nowadays, within the last, I think, year to year and a half, they've had 2 shows at the Cow Palace, which, the Cow Palace has, yeah, I mean, that's conceivably hold like 16,000 people. And it has for stuff like, pardon me, sporting events and touring shows and whatever. But they've been able to kind of build up their fan base and provide, and get talent from out of the area to come in and work the shows and whatever. They have they have a show coming up tomorrow in Daly City. So I might try to, try to attend that. Mm-hmm. So, that's just something I'm spitballing. Mm-hmm. The other thing would deal with solo performance, aka one-man shows. And full disclosure, I've been involved with this particular program. It's called Solo Sundays. They put on usually about an average of 2 shows a month in the Mission. They are in their 10th year of doing that. They have, a show on this Sunday, which, more full disclosure, I work on their website as well, so I have lots of access to their producer. One of the creators of this showcase was W. Kamau Bell, who, when he lived in San Francisco years ago, was very deeply involved with the solo performance community and directed shows and, and taught classes, and then built up his own show, which became the basis for Totally Biased, which was his talk show on cable. So,
wow, those are great things. You seem very close to the second story, so I don't know if you're up for the extra reporting effort to do the first one, but
right,
it might be that's a consideration. Plus, the first one has such an automatic narrative, kind of rags to riches, and success from garage to
right, and it's just such a, well, I guess you could call it a performance art.
Right, right.
They may not have the best reputation,
Right. There's here in our department, Corey Smith and Michael Vergara and another student. I can't remember. Too bad. Anyway, there's a wrestling podcast.
Oh, right.
You have a built-in audience here for that type of thing.
Yeah,
for sure.
Sure.
For sure, absolutely. I mean, even somewhere you could put it if you wanted to produce it. Questions? What would you guys think?
The wrestling thing is interesting, but I want to know if if the people who are doing the wrestling get 401k or do they get health benefits? Because they're jumping off of stuff.
I mean, even even at the top company, World Wrestling Entertainment, which has been pretty much a de facto monopoly for the last, since they bought WCW
40
in
years?
02. So for like 15, 16 years now, they've kind of been head and shoulders above that. Just traditionally, wrestlers have been paid as, going back to the days when each major metropolitan area had a territory run by an individual promoter, and then wrestlers would, kind of ply their wares from town to town at, 3 or 6 months or a year before rolling out to the next territory. They've traditionally been independent contractors.
So no.
And so, right. So,
Right. They're the Uber drivers of the stage.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. well.
Less insurance. Yeah.
Right. Oh my God. Okay, Lou, it sounds like you got tons of it for whatever, and I just have to say I enjoyed so much the video that you put together this summer. You have a real knack for, making the telling of the story as interesting as the story itself. So now the bar is high. We all look forward to hearing it. No, but really, it was terrific. Yeah. Okay, who's up next? I see King Lee, but it's Gloria?
It's something I could introduce because I covered the event in last week. So it's about the Autumn Moon Festival in Chinatown. The festival in Asian people celebrate it over 1,000 years. So it's a traditional festival. So every year it will be held in Chinatown. This year it will be the 28th. And so many people will come to there. They could buy mooncakes and some crafts, some cultural exhibition, and something else. The angle for me to interview is there will be a master chef, James Liang, will be there. He is famous in Chinese communities because he's famous for his Chinese food. He could make the food very good. And he's famous in the media. So he went to the event nearly every year. And he also will be invited as an honored guest. So I would like to let him tell me why he think it's interesting to come to the festival.
Sounds terrific. Anyone have any questions that you'd like to hear asked, or?
You said you already did the interview, right, last week?
Yeah, because the event already over.
The event's already happened, yeah. So that's allowed. As we talked about in choosing your stories, we were saying it is okay if it happened recently and you're going to write like it's about to happen or happening. And you were there and you covered it, right? So, I mean, yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I think it's a terrific idea. It's obviously very impactful for a lot of the San Francisco community. He's a famous person in this community. So there are many kind of newsworthy aspects of it. So maybe it's what makes him absolutely unique is what you want to focus in on it, in a sense that a lot of successful media personalities have their audience and they have their specialization, and he's definitely one of them. So then it's interesting to to find, okay, what is the really specific thing here with him. Seems good. Questions though? Anything you'd like to see asked?
Is he like just really open? Because you said you got an interview with him, but was it hard to get an interview, or was he just like, hey, what's up?
Oh, because I knew him before, so it's
Okay.
easy for me to find.
Okay.
Okay. For those of you who are not already in contact with whoever you want to work with, interview, now's the time to really, just jump right in, because that can take, a week, and you don't have that much time. So, sending out an email, it's easy for them to ignore. So it may be preferable to send an email for sure, yeah, but within a couple of days, try to find their phone number, and try to get that. The worst is, we're friends on Facebook or something like that, and then it's just like, wow, you're really starting from far. So now's the time to make the connection and make it work. Thank you. It sounds really good. Sounds doable. Paul, can we send the mic back to Paul?
Wait. Paul?
Paul's right in the back. That's all right.
So I didn't turn mine in, but I already know who I'm going to on. I'm doing it on one of my friends, Josie, who lived in New York for a couple of years. Moved out here and started looking for kind of bigger brands, just doing production style type of things, and left her job recently. And now she is actually doing full-time styling work, and actually has a pretty big following on Instagram. So I'm trying to get, a profile on her and her, I guess, journey as far as moving to Fresno, and how that's going to play with her work and whatnot.
Okay. Any particular angle? Does she have a very strong response to anything that she's experienced since she came here?
She has been here for about 4 years now, and is moving to Fresno, and is worried just about her job and how that's going to affect her getting jobs.
Okay. So at first I was thinking, are there some comparisons and contrasts she could draw between East Coast and West Coast work in that particular field? And now I'm getting a sense that she's going through a little precarious life transition, and that might be a possible focus on this. I don't know. You should figure that out. Even given that you have the access you do, you could go probably on a personal trip or on a professional one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so just get it going fast, but that sounds viable. Who's up next? Jesse.
Yep.
Jesse.
So mine has been like pretty interesting. I've been trying to contact different artists from Baby Hunters Point that either are like in the rap industry or DJs or producers. It has been a challenge with the artists that I've specifically been trying to get in contact with, because they all just performed over the weekend for the Rolling Loud concert that just happened out there in Oakland. And so now it's even harder to get in contact with them, because now it's just like, no, you have to speak to my management. I'm like, hey. So it kind of changed my direction of who I wanted to interview and kind of focus on. And so the person that I ended up, like, it makes sense. I'm like, I should just interview this person because he's amazing. He goes by the name of Jeremy Michael Vasquez, who is an artist, author, activist, educator, originally from Fairfield, but basically has done a lot of work out here in the Bay Area. That he was one of the first people to introduce the African American Male Achievement Program out here in the San Francisco Unified School District. He is author. He's wrote a couple of books already as well. But I really want to just focus on his story, his legacy, and the work that he's done with young people, with his activism, with his education, and just it's an amazing story that people really need to hear. Especially, sometimes it's really hard to hear about like young black males that are out here doing like amazing things for their communities, and he's definitely one that's out there that needs to get that spotlight. So I really want to focus on the projects that he's worked with. I know that he's done some stuff with Colin Kaepernick with the Know Your Rights program that they started out there in Oakland. So definitely just kind of, I wanted to highlight his story and the things that he's done. That's pretty much about it. And it's a trip because I contacted him last night, and then I got a text this morning, and he wants to meet today at 6. So.
Woo, okay. Anyone want to write some questions for Jesse? Any questions you want to contribute to Jesse? Things you'd like to know about this person?
As far as the African American community is concerned, what's his goal in the next 5 years for black males in the Bay Area?
Yeah, actually, I should write that down right now. Because I know that I already had a list of questions that I already kind of had already. 1 second.
All right, I'm feeling caught for time.
What's the confidence of him working with young people, but also just with that activism work, what do they want to do? As far as is he trying to focus on more the artistry sense, or?
Like you said, he started something. He started a group for young black males, right?
Yes.
So how does he want to continue that? Where is he trying to get to?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because
right.
Especially in this sense, you have an idea about where you want to go, but oftentimes you'll never say it until you start doing it. You know
right.
what I mean? So.
All right, we're going to turn it over to Desiree, but you guys should talk after.
Oh, thank you.
Desiree, is it a profile or an event?
I'm going to do profile.
Okay, we're going to zoom down there so people can just. Okay, go for it.
Yeah, so I'm really excited for my friend Dion. She got a book deal about what it's like to be an Asian American woman in media, which is really rad. It's about to be announced, and so there's going to be a lot of other people doing press on it. But I know her personally, and so I wanted to ask her a little bit more about what inspired her to write this, what kind of key takeaways she wants the reader to have, and just any kind of anecdotes of things along the way, good, bad, interesting, and any advice for other people coming up in the media, especially women and people of color.
Yeah, terrific. I can see that as a framing, just gives the value of the story right away. Plus it's got that timeliness as in you, so great. Anybody got a question or two they'd like to ask Desiree, or have Desiree ask?
So she already finished already?
Yeah. So
Okay.
It's done, it's
So
ready,
they're
and now they're
just
going to announce
painted
it's coming
and
out.
publishing.
Now it's,
Okay, that's
now
cool.
it's the publicity for it.
Okay, thank you. Rachel.
Okay, I'm leaning towards doing an event. It's called Battle of the Divas. It's San Francisco Opera is throwing this event where they go into a nightclub and they have opera singers get into teams and sing against each other, and I think the audience is gonna vote who they like. And it's actually my roommate works for the San Francisco Opera and she's helping run the event.
Cool. By the time I was able to blow it up so we could see it, you were already done.
Yeah, I don't really have an angle or anything. I don't know, maybe about supporting the arts.
Okay. Well,
can you get close to them? Are you going to be able to talk to them?
At least my roommate, I'll be able to talk to her about the event and maybe try to talk to the host of the event.
yeah, that might be good to get another viewpoint on it if they're accessible to you. Yeah. Okay, cool, great. We're now sprinting. We're sprinting. Roman, what are you working on?
I'm working on a project. I'm in the film co-op, Scary Cow.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, it's called Scary Cow. I have there's a director who's working in there. I think he's been with Scary Cow for something like 6 or 7 years. He's produced 5 or 6 short projects. He's currently working on an anthology film called 7 by 7. He's making one of the projects of 7. So, but at the end of it, they'll have a feature, and people will be able to look directly at their work. I guess it'll depend on that, if they can get it picked up. Might be hard to be put into festivals because it's going to be feature length. But he's a really interesting guy. I mean, we just did a project. We just finished his project for this. It's called Flowers in Our Hair, and essentially, there was a ridiculous amount of people on a short film. There was something like 100 people.
So he's able to muster a lot of production power.
Yeah,
a lot of people want to help this person.
Yeah, we shot it. He wanted to shoot in San Francisco, like a high-end house in San Francisco, but not possible. So we ended up in Livermore.
Okay.
So the house was like $5 million house or something. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well.
So he's doing his thing, and I'm going to talk.
I'm trying to rush everyone along, but so profile of local San Francisco creative person, new work coming out, and some of the challenges I think Alex was, kind of almost addressing, and what you were actually addressing with Alex. It's like, how do you survive doing this? It's a possibility. Yeah. So sounds good. Sounds viable. Can we? Let's see, Fran, you told us yours last one time, right? Yeah.
I submitted it. So.
Okay, gotcha. So Randia, can we hear from Randia? Thanks. This may be the last or next to last.
Okay. So mine is a fundraiser that's being held this Sunday for a domestic abuse survivor and for domestic abuse victims. It's at El Rio in the Mission. And I'm going to go to the fundraiser. I go to a lot of fundraisers at that bar. And I guess I have a question. I don't know if I should profile like the bar, like what kind of things they put on, or like the organization, or maybe both.
Well, who's accessible to you? Because, a story like this always needs a person at the heart of it.
Yeah, maybe the organization.
Like you basically feel confident that you'd have access to whoever you want to try to talk to?
I think so. That's the event. And then the profile I was thinking of doing is at Recology, they have artists in residence where they use like the material that Recology collects and makes art out of it. And they're having their exhibition this weekend. And the artists like walk through with you, show you their art.
That'd be a very fun video story, and you might be interesting in an audio sense too.
I'm gonna go to both just to
Okay, and see who who you can interview. That might be the deciding factor. Like, who can you get who's the most interesting and knowledgeable? I mean, I think we all understand, and one thing I'm really gratified to see is nobody is proposing just going to an event and talking to someone who is there, because they basically know nothing more than any audience member, right? So everyone is got a sense that, hey, we should talk to somebody who knows something special about this, or somebody who's involved in something that is special enough that they kind of qualify as, out of the ordinary in terms of knowing something, right? This is not a good place to do sort of person in the street interviews where it's just so, how did you feel at this, cheesecake bake-off or something? It's like, you want to talk to the person, the baker or whatever, or the organizer. So you've got it. So really it's just like, in this case, figure it out who you're going to talk to so that you can then, sort of angle in on what to actually ask. But the El Rio sounds interesting just because it's like such a, it sounds like it's becoming an institution for this kind of activity. And, so much of this activity is now kind of like, GoFundMe type of thing or something like that, then it's interesting just to see the real places and the real people that are involved in it. It might be an interesting angle. Yeah.
You wonder, how does that bar survive with donating all their proceeds or part of how much of that does that go to those organizations? They do a lot of those type of events. What's the cut?
Darn. Well, we're out of time. We didn't quite get to everybody. I'm sorry. But I know, come back next class and we'll get to you if you want to. Or if you want a personal one-on-one, remember my office hours, 11 till 12 in Arts Extension 170, so you can always talk to me one-on-one if you want.